Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
New troubles as you head through Echo Park. If you're taking that 101, south side of the 101, right as you get towards the 2 Alvarado Echo Park area. Crash onto the right shoulder, and that has slowed the drive from Sunset Boulevard. Crews are set up in Downey on that 5 South Lakewood Rosemead to the 605. That right lane is coned off till 2, and that is toughened the drive from at least Eastern. Boyle Heights, look out for some debris in lanes on that 5 South at 4th. Cardboard debris across traffic lanes. Van Nuys still seen a broken down big rig on that 405 south around Victory. Unfortunately, it's taking up 2 of the right lanes and cover away from the 118, the busy commute.
Looking for a late night spot to get the crew together? 3 words, Buffalo Wild Wings. They've got drinks and apps starting at $4 from 10 p.m. till close. B-dubs, where late night food and drinks start at $4. Cheers to that. Limited time at participating locations. Offers, days, and times may vary. Drink responsibly. Void or prohibited. Tax and fees extra.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers introduced the 2 players they selected in last week's NBA draft. First-round pick Jalen Hood-Schifino of Indiana and second-round pick Maxwell Lewis of Pepperdine. Both players talked about the influence Kobe Bryant had on them when they were kids. Lewis's father, Robert, grew up in Inglewood. He put up a Kobe poster in his son's bedroom. Hood-Schifino has a tattoo of Kobe on his arm. Lewis and Hood-Schifino will be involved in summer league play with the Lakers' undrafted rookies and free agents. The Lakers are competing in the California Classic, which begins July 3rd in Sacramento. They head to Las Vegas July 7th for the 10-day NBA Summer Pro League. The Lakers have a decision to make today on Malik Beasley and Mo Bamba. Both have non-guaranteed contracts. If the Lakers don't re-sign them today, they'll be free to move on. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
2 years ago, on Juneteenth 2021, KBLA Talk 1580 launched with a promise to give disenfranchised fellow citizens a voice in current political, economic, social, and cultural issues with an empowering, sustainable, and restorative language.
Everybody's gotta live a life under the sun, under the sun, under the sun, under the
As we enter our 3rd year, we are delighted that KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerges as the talk station of choice for African American listeners. In a vigorous public opinion research study, the 2023 African American Media Issue Survey finds that for the 2nd consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 remains the most trusted, credible, and reliable media source in Southern California for African Americans and beyond. Furthermore, 80% of those surveyed agree that outlets like KBLA Talk 1580 provide honest and authentic content about the issues most important to the Black community directly from Black journalists who understand the issues that need to be addressed. At KBLA Talk 1580, we remain committed to curating conversations that matter to you. Thank you for your continued support. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. The station that sounds like the city looks. The city looks.
because I'm going away. Oh, please don't be angry with me, baby, because I'm going away.
As we conclude our celebration of Black Music Appreciation Month, I still like calling it Black Music Month, this week, we want to shine a spotlight in this hour on a genre that often does not receive the recognition it deserves. I could be talking about jazz, but we're talking about, of course, the blues. The blues is not just a genre of music, it's a reflection of history, resilience, and cultural identity for us. With its origins in African musical traditions, the blues emerged as a distinct form of our expression within our community and beyond for that matter. But it's undeniable that the blues has had a storied history and left an indelible mark on the musical landscape, inspiring generations of artists, mostly white these days, we'll come to that as well, and captivating listeners with its raw emotion and soulful storytelling. I am pleased to be joined in this hour by leading, towering public intellectual Dr. Lewis Gordon for a conversation about the profound legacy and impact of the blues on African American culture and beyond. Dr. Gordon, welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580, sir.
I'm delighted to be back, Tavis. How are you doing?
Man, if I complained I'd be an ingrate, I'm glad to have you back. Glad we have an hour to sort of unpack this. I should tell you, the audience knows this, because June is Black Music Month, every day this month we've been picking out a particular artist, an iconic artist, and playing the best of their stuff all 3 hours of our program. And so we've been weaving in some blues today in preparation for this conversation, this hour with you. But it's amazing to me, even still, the imprint, the indelible imprint that we have had, black folk have had on it, on every musical genre, and yet it seems to me that you can't talk about the African American music tradition without centering in that conversation jazz and the blues. In this conversation, we want to focus on the blues. So when I say the blues, you think what, for starters?
When you say the blues, I say, in fancy language, the leitmotif of modern life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and leitmotif for the audience is basically the soundtrack, the music that accompanies the events. And yeah, and the blues is the leitmotif, we could say, of Euro-modern life, because Euro-modern life tries to deny what is not European and what is not white. And the resistance, the speaking back, the truth about the suffering, the misery, but at the same time, the paradoxical joy, struggle, and affirmation of dignity, that is in the blues.
Yeah. Let me start. I could have come to this later, but let me just do it now because I want to just jump right in. I was in New York not long ago and spent some time with my dear friend and brother, Wynton Marsalis. It just happened to be, while I was there, the last performance of the season for jazz at Lincoln Center. I shared this a few weeks ago when I got back from New York, I think, with the audience. But I spent some time at Wynton and went to the performance, had a great time as always. Afterwards, he and I hung out, as we always do. And I heard Wynton is now above 60, and was first time ever he and I were talking. I hope I'm not speaking out of school here on a public media platform, but he was talking for the first time about retirement and how much longer he was going to do this jazz at Lincoln Center.
Oh
thing.
no, Wynton, no.
That's exactly what I told him. That's exactly what I said to him. We was talking about how much longer he was going to do this. And you know how beloved he is in this space, and he is the ambassador for jazz in this country, around the globe. As a matter of fact, for 3 months now, he's somewhere on the other side of the world. He's literally traveling internationally for 3 months with the Jazz at Lincoln Center Band Orchestra. So we were talking again about how much longer he's going to do this, and I heard in his voice once again, Dr. Gordon, as I've heard any number of times, I heard in his voice this sort of melancholy about all that he has done, and yet he feels that he has not yet gotten his own people to re-embrace, if I can put it that way, to fall in love again in late modernity with this art form, this music form that we have created. He looks out into audiences every night, not just internationally, of course, but in this country, and he sees primarily white folk in the audience, and that troubles him. That we aren't embracing this thing that we created in the way that we should, and that's jazz. The same could be said, and is going to be said, because I'm going to say it now, of the blues. When you go see B.B. King, God rest his soul, when you go see Buddy Guy, who's still doing it, when you see the few that are still alive, when you see these iconic black blues artists in concert, and you look at the audience, as I do when I go see them, the audience doesn't look anywhere near like me. And that's a reality that we need to wrestle with. So let's just wrestle with that at the top. Take it away.
Sure. Well, the first thing is there are two ways that dominate the way white folk, not every white folk, but in general, white folks like to look at Black aesthetic production. And one of them basically is it has the echo of the museum. In other words, the extent to which we become legitimate, but paradoxically through an illegitimacy in terms of being a living art, if we can be placed in something to be looked at as a fragment or a figment of the past. The second one is straightforwardly connected to the economy of music, and that is the form of exploitation where at the level not of necessarily individuals, but at the level of how the art is structured, it takes on an expectation of a form of domestication through which it is, I think the iconic example is minstrelsy, which makes it into entertainment, where it can become blackface. Now, people may wonder, what do I mean by that? But I think a real brilliant critique of this was Jordan Peele with Get Out. In other words, the desire to see something in the appearance of Black, but beneath it is a white looking back. And that represents a kind of affirmation or stabilization of the political order. But I could put it in many ways, because, I also am a musician.
Sure.
I play jazz and blues. And I remember back, oh man, this was in the late 70s. And so this is how early this stuff began. I remember we were setting up in a club one day, and I thought I would just invite I saw some kids on the street. This was a Black neighborhood, too. And I said, you want to come in? We're going to be just doing a sound check. You can check out some music. And they were like, what do you play? And we said, jazz. And they said, jazz? I said, oh, yeah, that's white people's music. And you could imagine how heartbroken a lot of us were. And that led me to meditating for a long time. I would say right now it's more than 40 years on this.
Let me cut in 1 second. Let me cut in for a minute. When we come forward, I want to hear what that meditation was. I could hear you teeing that up and ramping up. I didn't want to have to cut you off in the middle of the story of what you've been cogitating on and meditating on all these years. So I want to hear that meditation and that cogitation when we come forward. He is, as he said, an artist himself, but he's also a brilliant public intellectual. His name is Dr. Lewis Gordon. We're talking in this hour about the impact of the blues on KBLA Talk 1580.
All over when she walks, she made a blind man see, made a dumb man talk. Don't you love me with a feeling? She loved me with a feeling.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Did you know that all City of LA renters have rights? Check out these 3 facts. Residential tenants can't be evicted without reason or just cause. Eviction protection still exists for unpaid COVID-19 rental debt due before March 31st, 2023. And you have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice. 5 days. Many Angelenos may be at risk of losing their home, and that's why we want you to know your rights. Learn more at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
Moments like my daughter telling me a new joke mean a lot to me. But after being diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, or MBC, which is breast cancer that is spread to other parts of the body, they mean even more. I take Ibrance, palbociclib.
Ibrance 125 milligram tablets with an aromatase inhibitor is for adults with HR-positive, HER2-negative MBC as the first hormonal-based therapy. Ask your doctor about Ibrance and visit Ibrance.com. Ibrance may cause low white blood cell counts that may lead to serious infections. Ibrance may cause severe inflammation of the lungs. Both of these can lead to death. Tell your doctor right away if you have new or worsening symptoms, including trouble breathing, shortness of breath, cough, or chest pain. Before taking Ibrance, tell your doctor if you have fever, chills, or other signs of infection, liver or kidney problems, are or plan to become pregnant, or are breastfeeding. Common side effects include low red blood cell and low platelet counts, infections, tiredness, nausea, sore mouth, abnormalities in liver blood tests, diarrhea, hair thinning or loss, vomiting, rash, and loss of appetite.
In 2020, California established the first in the nation task force to study reparations for African Americans. Their responsibility is to examine and recommend to the California State Legislature potential remedies of compensation, rehabilitation, and restitution for African Americans, with a special consideration for the descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. We encourage you to join the final meeting of the task force in Sacramento on Thursday, June 29th, starting at 9 a.m. in the first floor auditorium of the March Fong Yu Secretary of State building. To learn more about reparations and the task force, visit the California Department of Justice website at oag.ca.gov, where you can also get details about how to participate in the hearing virtually if you cannot participate in person on Thursday, June 29th for this final public hearing where the task force will present their final recommendations. For more information, reach out to Charles Communication Group at 888-326-0010. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Mr. Backlash, just who do you think I am? You raise my taxes, freeze my wages, and send my son to Vietnam. You give me second-class houses and second-class schools. Do you think that all colored folks are just second-class fools, Mr. Backlash? I'm gonna leave you with a backlash blues.
We're talking about the blues in this hour. We went to break with She Loves Me With a Feeling. That was Taj Mahal, in case you didn't know. That was Taj Mahal, and this, of course, is Nina Simone, as we talk in this hour about the blues. Our guest in this hour is a jazz and blues musician himself, Dr. Lewis Gordon. And just before that break, he was starting to tell us a story of being in a black neighborhood one day and inviting some black kids in to listen to some music that they were playing. And they asked, the kids asked, "What are you playing?" And they said, "We're playing jazz." And these black kids said, "Jazz? That's white folks' music." And that story, that anecdote, was shared by Dr. Gordon because we were in the midst of a conversation about how it is and why it is that these two unique art forms that we have created, specifically jazz and the blues, are not being embraced by us in real time. In the ways that this music is being embraced by others. And it's troubling to Wynton Marsalis, who is the great ambassador for jazz these days, and many of us who are fans of the music, troubling to us as well. So Dr. Gordon picked the story up of these black boys saying that they didn't want to come in and listen to you guys play because jazz is white folks' music, and you were saying that you have been meditating on that for almost 40 years now, meditating on it, cogitating on it. So tell me what you've come up with.
Well, sure. I mean, as I said, that remark from those boys broke my heart. But irony of ironies, when we went in, the two who were playing was Oliver Nelson's Stolen Moments. Mm-hmm. So you could imagine the irony of that. Mm-hmm. And that's also a blues. It's jazz, but it's also blues. And I noticed that you were playing 12-bar blues. And one of the things about the blues, of course, is that the blues is a music that is also a form of adult sensibility of bringing the tragic dimensions of life and the responsibility of it to the fore. But what I was thinking about over the years is, the blues never left us. The blues takes many forms, and it has been the wellspring from which so many other kinds of music have come out. Not only R&B, rock and roll, but all the way through to reggae, to hip hop, samba. All of that come out of the blues. So there's a living blues, that blues sensibility, as Amira Baraka would put it, in blues people. And what I began to realize is the mistake we make is if we want to freeze one incarnation of what we do as the only version through which to do it. Mm-hmm. What we need to do is to do what the Akan, the people of Ghana, a particular group of people in Ghana point out in the term Sankofic. And it means it's exemplified by the bird moving forward that reaches back to pick up something it left behind. And what we need to do is to work hard at a connection, not only between the movements we have for liberation, but also to find a way for our youth and the contemporary forms to connect to those of the past in a kind of living dialogue with the present. Mm. And there were jazz musicians who did a lot. That was what they did for me. I mean, like, I, as an adolescent, got to hang out and play with people like Roy Eldridge, Eddie Locke, to meet Frank Foster, Billy Taylor, all those people, but also blues musicians of so many kinds. So the thing, what I think, what I would say is that what we need to do, and it's a very crucial thing to do, and I do this in my writings, in my books, and I see others. Brother Cornell West does that too. Mm-hmm. A lot of us need to bring to the forefront the understanding of how intergenerations should connect. And that is where one can develop the appreciation. Now, there's a real serious problem with the political economy around music. If you're going to have an art form put in places where just frankly, a lot of people just can't afford it. Mm-hmm. They don't get that access. I had the good fortune of the 70s where these were being played in the parks. They were being played. And also people just bring you into nightclubs and just let you get to hear it. So we need to bring a sort of living connection to the music. And the thing that's important about it is the complexity of what this music offers to our past, but also for young people to know that they're part of something very special. And what I mean by that is, a lot of the rudeness you would hear in some contemporary hip-hop, if you listen to some old blues, R&B, whether it's Bessie Smith, Ma Rainey, or Dinah Washington, you hear some really clever lines around dealing with the complexities of racism, sexuality, many of the issues that young people are concerned with today.
Yeah. If Wynton Marsalis or my friend Buddy Guy were a part of this conversation right now, they would push back on you and the notion that people can't afford it. And I know exactly what you mean. Getting a ticket to go to Lincoln Center and to hear Wynton Marsalis is not necessarily cheap. But if Wynton and Buddy were in this conversation, I can assure you what they'd say, because they've said it to me, which is that we spend money on things that we value. We spend money on technology. We spend money on shoes. We spend money on handbags. We spend money on all kind of stuff because we value those things. So what does it mean? On the one hand, we say we can't afford it. We can't afford to go see Buddy Guy. We can't afford to go see Wynton Marsalis. We can't afford to see whoever. And yet, as we're telling Wynton and Buddy this to their face, what we can't afford, they're looking at our handbag, they're looking at our shoes, they're looking at the watch we're wearing, they're looking at the other lapels, the labels rather, labels on the stuff that we're sporting that day, but we're telling them that we can't afford it. They ain't buying it.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a similar debate around books. There are people who spend money on all kinds of other things, but they won't buy a book.
Exactly.
So we're familiar with. And also, in terms of access to music, there's streaming. There are many ways in which to get access to free music. But one of the things about music, especially the kind we're talking about, it's not music that comes out of the blue, right? Not to be make a pun there.
Yeah.
It's music that also comes through a form of connectedness to communities. And one of the things I think that's reflected that Marsalis and some of the others may not be thinking about, or they might be, I don't want to be presumptuous, is that there is a form of erosion of intergenerational communication going on in many Black communities through which to carry this on. I've noticed, for instance, when I meet whites who are into jazz or into the blues, they all have the same story. It was introduced to them as a prized possession by their parents. or their mentor or somebody like that, which meant they had an intergenerational experience. I know with my kids, it's the same thing. Every day after we would eat a meal or something, we'd go and dance and listen to music of every kind in the living room. They played instruments. So this is one of the crucial things. And this way of connecting Black communities across generations is very crucial. And there's ways to do it. In some places, you do find Black youth who are playing blues and jazz. For instance, in the Hartford area, Jackie McLean, the legacy is there. Jackie McLean went back to his community, built centers, reached out to youth, Jackie McLean youth centers, things like that. But one of the other things that's also a big difficulty that's happening right now, beyond all that, is that we're talking about a music that really requires a relationship to instruments. In other words, to musicianship. And increasingly music is produced without musicians. And that absence of that kind of ensemble getting together, knowing the intimacies of an acoustical instrument, an electrical instrument that's played, that connects to communities, that is also being lost. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't revive it in different ways, but if we do it, we have to be open to the idea that the young people may bring to it a new sensibility.
You raised two issues now that I want to probe with you. I'm looking at my clock here. I got about 2 minutes before news, traffic, and sports. Let me get one of them out now. We'll come back to the issue of the relationship of this music to musicians, to real musicians who actually play instruments. We'll come back to that in a moment. But this notion of cultural erosion jumped out at me because I think you're right. I know you're right about that. I guess the question is, in 2 minutes, what's the long-term impact of this musical erosion that we are experiencing right now, even as we talk about music in Black Music Month? What's the long-term impact of that, you see?
I think the long-term impact is that it's symptomatic of generations that would actually create a situation of an absence of control and agency. To put it differently, there's a paradox we're dealing with, which is that as youth articulate themselves as rebellious, increasingly youth are actually more conservative. And this conservatism is going to have an impact that will separate generations because the older generations become increasingly distant from the rules of the younger generation. But that's a longer conversation. But it's something I'm heavily concerned with, which is the paradoxical conservatism of contemporary youth.
Let me probe a little bit further. I got another 30 seconds here. So, where, if I had the time, where would that conversation take us?
That conversation would take us into the direction of political nihilism, which is something we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Because it leads to the notion that it only makes sense to deal with what you individually can control. But political life requires community participation, just like jazz and the blues are ultimately about communities.
Yeah. So there's your answer to the cultural erosion piece. When we come forward after news, traffic, and sports, I want to come back to this other point he makes, which is that if you're going to be a blues musician, you got to play an instrument. I mean, you can be a vocalist, but there's a connection to the instrument. Same with jazz. And that's just not the way music is being done today. And that's not to cast aspersion on the good stuff that we're getting, but it does take us right back again, full circle, to this notion of cultural erosion. And whether or not in the Junes to come, in the Junes of our future, what will the conversation about Black music be like if we have surrendered our agency, if we've moved away from that relationship with jazz and with the blues, which we're discussing in this hour, that requires somebody to play some instrument. A great deal more to unpack when we come forward, celebrating the blues in June, Black Music Month. In this hour, with Dr. Lewis Gordon, you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Something got to change right here now. I want to tell you something. You know, my mama told me to leave California.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Good morning, I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Former President Donald Trump claims he did nothing wrong, discussing what prosecutors say were classified documents with his staff and others after he left office. During a rally in New Hampshire, Trump took time out to say that he and his staff were going through a lot of things besides the documents, like magazines, for instance. Trump was responding to an audio recording of a 2021 meeting where he discusses holding on to the secret documents. A number of iconic buildings connected to New York City's jazz history, and some of its iconic musicians are getting landmark building designations. They are the former home of African-American Dizzy Gillespie in Queens and an apartment on St. Nicholas Avenue in Hamilton Heights where African-American Duke Ellington once lived. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
New troubles as you head through Echo Park. If you're taking that 101, south side of the 101, right as you get towards the 2 Alvarado Echo Park area. Crash onto the right shoulder, and that has slowed the drive from Sunset Boulevard. Crews are set up in Downey on that 5 South Lakewood Rosemead to the 605. That right lane is coned off till 2, and that is toughened the drive from at least Eastern. Boyle Heights, look out for some debris in lanes on that 5 South at 4th. Cardboard debris across traffic lanes. Van Nuys still seen a broken down big rig on that 405 south around Victory. Unfortunately, it's taking up 2 of the right lanes and cover away from the 118, the busy commute.
Looking for a late night spot to get the crew together? 3 words: Buffalo Wild Wings. They've got drinks and apps starting at $4 from 10 p.m. till close. B-dubs, where late night food and drinks start at $4. Cheers to that. Limited time at participating locations. Offers, days, and times may vary. Drink responsibly. Void or prohibited. Tax and fees extra.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers introduced the 2 players they selected in last week's NBA draft. First-round pick Jalen Hood-Schifino of Indiana and second-round pick Maxwell Lewis of Pepperdine. Both players talked about the influence Kobe Bryant had on them when they were kids. Lewis's father, Robert, grew up in Inglewood. He put up a Kobe poster in his son's bedroom. Hood-Schifino has a tattoo of Kobe on his arm. Lewis and Hood-Schifino will be involved in summer league play with the Lakers' undrafted rookies and free agents. The Lakers are competing in the California Classic, which begins July 3rd in Sacramento. They head to Las Vegas July 7th for the 10-day NBA Summer Pro League. The Lakers have a decision to make today on Malik Beasley and Mo Bamba. Both have non-guaranteed contracts. If the Lakers don't re-sign them today, they'll be free to move on. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
To my hometown, my community. Some of you have known me my whole life. Do you notice anything different about the kids in the neighborhood? Ever paid attention? You might start with gifts, money, attention. These are signs. Child trafficking is happening right here in this town. So don't just watch through the window. Pay attention. Because the more we know, the more we'll all know to say no. Learn the signs to look for and how to help at no-to-say-no.com.
Are you a small or micro business owner looking for ways to succeed after the pandemic? LA County has got you covered. Gain access to economic opportunity grants and technical assistance to help your business thrive. Whether you need mentorship or capital investment programs, they're here to help. Find out if you qualify at recovery.lacounty.gov/programs. That's recovery.lacounty.gov/programs. LA County and you, moving forward together.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Sprinklers in the Rain and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on.
K-Drip. We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Somebody loaned me a dime. I wanna call my old time used to be. Somebody loaned me a dime. I tell you, I wanna call my old time used to be. My woman been gone so long, yeah,
night now began to worry me. Oh, I just cry, I just cry. I cry like a baby all night long. Oh, how I cry, and then I cry. I cry just like a baby all night long.
I'm Tavis Smiley, Finn Robinson on KBLA Talk 1580 as we talk about the blues in this hour. Our guest is Dr. Lewis Gordon. You're listening, by the way, to KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Tavis Smiley. Our phone number 1-800-920-1580. We've been celebrating Black Music Month all this month of June, and we're running out of days here. And so we are spending an hour of this program talking about the impact of the blues, the indelible mark that it has left on the musical landscape, and why it is so many of us seem not to be embracing it, or for that matter, jazz these days, in the way we once did, even though we created this music, these music art forms that are now embraced by people all around the world. But when you go to shows, jazz shows and blues shows, the audience does not look like us. And that is troubling for many of the artists I've spoken to over the years who are on the stage looking back at the audience. They get troubled by the fact that so many of their own people are not supporting the music as it were. We were talking to Dr. Gordon moments ago about, talking about cultural erosion and the impact of that long term. But the other point you made was that the relationship to jazz and blues means you have to have a relationship to instruments, instrumentation, and playing those things. And again, we're in a moment right now where there are fewer and fewer players, a lot of performers, but fewer and fewer players. What's the impact of that reality long term?
Yep. That was a fine distinction you made between performers and musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is right now, as we know, what's dominating questions of blackness and black communities is entertainment versus art. And the thing about art is not only more demanding, but art also requires a level of understanding that enables one to be innovative on an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think about it, like, for instance, when I was thinking about our discussion today, I sent out a tweet from my book, Fair Black Consciousness, and there's a whole section, chapter 11, called Blue, which is about the blues.
Mm-hmm.
And the tweet I put was just a quote from it that says, to produce music in which the lives and aspirations of black people matter, and to do so at the level of musical virtuosity that few white performers can match, it's already an affront to anti-black racist society.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a South African philosopher by the name of Maboso More, and he wrote a memoir in which he said the pride black South Africans felt in hearing African-American music in the form of the blues and jazz, and knowing that even if you pick the best of the best white performers, very, very few could match this. There's just a scale of what was being performed there. That was an extraordinary source of pride. And you know what's interesting is they're white folks. If you see the Blues Brothers movie, and it's the 43rd anniversary of the Blues Brothers movie,
Mm-hmm.
it's the white guys, but it's a homage to black music.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that Ray Charles scene on Shake a Tail Feather,
Mm-hmm.
or even the Chaka Khan, James Brown, all of them in the church scene, all of that. Even though it's a movie, the artistry that's involved. These are some of the finest musicians ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is symptomatic there, of course, is this, and this is the other quote I posted. Anti-black racism relaxes when black people are reduced to entertainment instead of the challenge and complexity of art. Bebop, for example, which is a genre of blues music in the form of jazz, a lot of people don't realize the blues influenced on bebop, transcends the misery of stereotypical blackness. Frantz Fanon loved bebop for that reason. He understood that ultimately the meeting of complex narratives, the ability to tell a story like what you were just playing, or even when we think about something like Arthur Lee, what he does, Everybody's Got to Live. It's really striking that that's reintroduced to audiences now through, he passed away, but, I think it's Mac Miller, the white musician, did his version of it. But the fact of the matter is there's so many popular white songs that other people don't know are black songs that come out of this art form.
Yeah.
And I know that among my favorite hip-hop artists, a lot of them do have this blues sensibility because they're also excellent musicians as well, like Michelle and Jay Cello.
Mm-hmm.
But also when I think of some of the best of Most Def, Black on Both Sides, that album, for me, that's a blues album. But I also see this blues sensibility that's coming out again in certain kinds of films, because even though some people may knock certain things in that, really high popular culture stuff, the Spider-Verse film I see that as an extraordinary blues film because it has not only the music in there, but it also has the dissonance by having worlds that were designed to be separated meeting. And this is a crucial thing about blues that people miss, because blues is a music that is able to make beauty out of dissonance. It's a point at which, if people talk about the blue tone, the blue note, there's a way in which, for instance, here's a great exemplar of this. I was just listening to Biz Markie.
Mm-hmm.
You know that really funny song he has, You Got What I Need.
Oh, yeah. Oh, baby, you got what I need. Right. Yeah, I got you.
It's a great,
you say he's
great,
just a friend.
Great,
yeah, I got you.
It's a friend.
Yeah.
But what's so great about it is that what makes it beautiful, he's singing off key. And that is remarkable because it brings the humanity and the pathos right there. And he does it also in The Vapors, his other tune. But my point is that this is music that is produced by a people in a world in which a certain conception of music says it is illegitimate ever to be out of tune. But what do you do if you're an out of tune people? In other words, what you got to do if you're an out of tune people is make music. And this music is able to listen to the notes between the notes. And this is some of the things that I love about some of the stuff that Winter Marsalis does as well. Mm-hmm. And we can see it all over the place. But again, this is about musicianship. And we have to remember, too, that most musicians in the blues legacy were not trained musicians. Many can't even read music. So this is music that's coming from their heart, from their soul. But the complexity, the genius of the music, this is something that we need to carry on. And I'm actually optimistic that we will, but we'd have to have another conversation about why that is so.
I'm scribbling stuff down as fast as I can so I don't forget it, because you said so much I didn't want to interrupt. But let me jump in with a few things. First of all, let me go right back 5 minutes ago to your invocation of the movie The Blues Brothers, and you mentioned some great scenes. We left one out, and she's my girl, so I want to give her props. I love the Ray Charles scene, Shake a Tail Feather. I love the scene with Chaka and James Brown in the church, but Aretha in the cafeteria, that's a cold piece too.
Aretha in the cafeteria.
Aretha in the cafeteria. So we got to give Aretha, got to give her love.
We got to give a shout out to yes. We have to give it to Aretha and her pink Cadillac. Absolutely.
There you go. Now she killed that thing in the cafeteria. Yeah.
She killed it, but did you check out her sisters in that scene?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the chorus. No, the reason I want to bring this up, this is really crucial. I've been having a conversation on this issue. A lot of people today talk about authority, right? Mm-hmm. But they don't make the distinction between authority and what it is to be authoritative. If you're an authority who's not authoritative, you have to force people to follow you, and you become authoritarian, which is the problem we're having right now.
Good Lord, Doc. Come on.
But if you're authoritative, you are admitting accountability to a community. And that's why at the heart of the question of black people in America, in the United States, because you see, the United States was not premised on democracy. It was the idea of being a republic, but it's black people and indigenous peoples who pushed it into the question of democracy, because it says it reaches out and asks for accountability. Authoritativeness requires accountability, and whenever you hear the chorus in music, the chorus, especially in black music, it's not just about hype. You notice when she said, "You better think," her sister says, "Think."
That's it.
That repetition in the blues is also an affirmation of truth and authoritativeness. So implicit in it, this is also something. Every blues song, every form of black music, is not about someone singing really to themselves, but to a community about accountability. Yeah. And that's a political message for our times.
This is why I love Dr. Lewis Gordon. I can't even keep up. Blues is making beauty out of dissonance. That's what we do as a people. We make beauty out of dissonance, not just musically, but in everything we touch. We turn dissonance into beauty. His notion that something is wrong when black people get reduced to entertainers and not regarded or respected for our artistry. You don't want to just be reduced to an entertainer. What about celebrating and reveling in our artistry? And then that brilliant breakdown of authoritative and authoritarian. And we just spent an hour talking about the authoritarian, Mr. Trump, in our first hour. And then that last point about being an out-of-tune people. That's what we are. We are an out-of-tune people. And yet, look at all that we've done, singing oft-times off-key. I love Mary J. Blige, but if you know music, Mary ain't never sang on key. Mary sings above the note. She sings underneath the note. Mary will not sing on key, and yet she's the queen of hip-hop soul, and she ain't never sang nothing on key, but she's brilliant. And then he mentioned our brother, Biz Markie. We are an out-of-tune people, and yet look at all that we've accomplished musically and beyond. You can't fade Lewis Gordon. More of him when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
I'm James Alexander, a proud member of AARP. 1967, I was 17. That spring, my friends, the Barcades, and I made Soulfinger. It was a hit. Number 3 on the charts. That summer, we became the great Otis Redding's band. First gig, the famed Apollo. That fall, we toured. That winter found me in a morgue identifying the bodies of my bandmates and Otis Redding. My music and their memories bring me joy. The Barcades forever.
What would you call a joy that is as solemn as it is sweet and knows no bounds? A joy that's beautifully rooted in soul and resilience. This is Black Joy, a joy that reflects pride and honor despite every challenge. AARP believes the power of Black joy is limitless, and we celebrate this joy supreme. Join us in celebrating Black joy at aarp.org/blackcommunity.
The Shadow Sister Tour is coming to Malik Books, Westfield, Culver City Mall, Friday, June 30th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Author Lily Mead will be signing and discussing her new book, The Shadow Sister. This book is perfect for fans of emotional suspense, sisters with stories with complex family dynamics, and speculative fiction, including hoodoo. Lily Mead's captivating book is a must-read, truly a page-turner. From the first line to the final page. The moderator is New York Times best-selling author of the book, The Black Kids. Come out to Malik Books, Westfield, Culver City Mall for the Shadow Sister Tour, Friday, June 30th at 7 p.m. There will be diverse books featuring strong female leads. Malik Books is a community bookstore that amplifies the voices of our community and gives voice to the voiceless. For more information, go to malikbooks.com. Again, that's malikbooks.com.
Boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
I'm Tavis Smiley. Our guest in this hour is Dr. Lewis Gordon, and we are talking about the undeniable and indelible imprint of the blues on the musical landscape in this country and indeed around the globe. And I'm still just wrestling with some of the brilliance he just laid out. I want to come back to this notion that you raised, Dr. Gordon, as we talk about the blues in this hour. We played so many great artists in this hour, and we'll play maybe get one or two more in. Maybe we'll get some more. Find me another Taj Mahal track, Miles. As a matter of fact, I tell you one I want. Yes, Taj knows I love this. She Caught the Katy. She Caught the Katy. We're gonna give me some of that in a second there from Taj Mahal. But you were saying, Dr. Gordon, before that break, that there's a danger when our people, blues artists or beyond, get reduced to just being entertainers and not celebrated for our artistry. Say just a bit more about that, because that's a powerful distinction for me.
Sure. Entertainment, in a nutshell, is a distraction. Art digs into the human condition. When we dig into the human condition, we are asserting our humanity. And the whole project of anti-Black racism, colonialism, all of that stuff is to degrade, disempower us, to take away our humanity. And my point about us even being out of tune, the whole point is, who wants to really fit in a society that tells us we are lesser, that we somehow, that existence is better without us? That's nonsense. So what we do is we articulate a life that's worth living, and this is one of the reasons why so much of I mean, just per artist we could spend an hour on. I mean, and not only people from B.B. King all the way to Dinah Washington, but even we think of somebody like Marvin Gaye, the range of his abilities. Or we think about the complex ways in which the music connects to many other societies, the way Alice Coltrane did, in the way she connects African-American music with the East. And we could just go on and on. So, but every one of those is us ultimately standing up and at the level of aesthetic production, doing the equivalent of that protester in Memphis when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. The man, those protesters who had those signs, I am a man. We could say we are a people, we are a person, we are human beings. And every moment in which that music shines, transforms, and goes to the deeper level of the human condition, and by deeper I mean, you and I know this. Right now in Beijing, there's somebody listening to the blues. Right now in New Zealand, there's someone listening to the blues. In Siberia, and right now, across the continent of Africa, there are people listening to the blues. In other words, people could say all their life, the universality of the human condition is coming out of this powerful creative form that we have produced here in African America, the Caribbean, and all across the globe through what we call the African diaspora.
And out-of-tune people who make beauty out of dissonance. This is Taj Mahal on KBLA Talk 1580.
Laying my baby long, wake up somebody sit tall. You know my baby long, wake up somebody, my baby tall. My baby, she long, my baby, she tall. She sleep with her head in the kitchen and her big feet out in the hall. And I'm still crazy about her, that hard-headed woman of mine. I love my baby, she's so fine.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Get ready to feel the funk with Charlie Wilson at the Hollywood Bowl on July 12th. Wilson brings 4 decades of hits like Outstanding and Party Train, from his days as lead singer of the Gap Band and his award-winning solo career, with hits like You Are and There Goes My Baby. In Vogue opens the night infusing killer vocals with class on hits like Free Your Mind and My Lovin'. Get your tickets now at HollywoodBowl.com. Hollywood Bowl, forever summer.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for education as a right, not a privilege. Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science is a private, non-profit, community-founded, student-centered university committed to cultivating diverse health profession leaders who are dedicated to social justice and health equity for underserved populations. CDU does this through outstanding education, clinical service, and community engagement. Recently, Charles Drew University made history by opening only the 5th medical school at an historically black university. Congratulations, South LA, and congratulations to the dean of the medical school, Dr. Deborah Protho-Stith. CDU is now training doctors and providing $90 million in annual economic benefit to Watts and surrounding neighborhoods. To apply for medical school, get more information, or sign your child up for the Junior Doctors Saturday School program, visit cdrewu.edu. That's cdrewu.edu. At KBLA, we are dedicated to equity in education and ending healthcare apartheid, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Leroy, 71's backed up. What's your 20? Over.
Olivia needs more drivers for her trucking company to go the extra mile.
Got 3 more stops to make.
She wants to hitch a team to drive business forward.
Lots of double nickels on the 169. You know what I'm over? This driver shortage.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. We instantly connect you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you looking to steer your career in a new direction? Driving for Culver City Bus can be your ticket to a long-lasting career with excellent benefits and paid training. Culver City Bus is looking for customer service and safety-minded bus operators to join the growing team. Culver City Bus offers on-the-job training starting at $19.10 per hour, uniform allowance, and health benefits. Culver City Bus is a great employer. Let Culver City Bus connect you with an essential service job. If you enjoy driving, seek real opportunities for career advancement, and passionate about making a difference in the community, then you are invited to join the Culver City Bus team. Start your journey today by submitting an application at culvercity.org/jobs. For more info, visit culvercitybus.com or call live customer service operators at 310-253-6500.
Interrogating your assumptions
And expanding your inventory of ideas.
Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Dr. Gordon, I've enjoyed this immensely. I only have 2 minutes left, though, in this conversation. Let me just finally close by asking you to say a word about the influence of the blues quickly here on other genres.
Oh, I mean, pretty much almost every genre you hear today that we could call contemporary popular music, it comes out of the blues. All the way even to Bhangra. If you hear certain forms of Punjabi dance music, comes out of the blues. If you go to samba, the blues. If you listen to most Latin Caribbean music, even when people talk about reggaeton, all of that, the blues. I already talked about hip-hop. If you already talked about rock and roll. But there are all kinds of other elements that are going at work. And as we see, even if we go to Korean K-pop, you could see a link to the blues. And this is why I say this is the part. This is the underlying connectedness of the human condition. Ultimately, it's about the affirmation of life. And as long as people are going to move beyond the question of adolescent pleasure into the question of a more adult sensibility of how to live even with sorrow, you will be looking in the eyes and in your heart dealing with the blues.
Yeah. And that's why we never let misery have the last word. We never let misery have the last word. That's the blues.
Never let misery have the last word.
Those are the blues for you. That's the blues for you. Our guest in this hour has been Dr. Lewis Gordon, brilliant public intellectual, professor, and, of course, musician himself, jazz and blues musician. Dr. Gordon, I enjoyed this greatly. Thank you for your time. We'll do it again, my friend.
So did I. Thank you so much for inviting me. Be well, okay?
Be well. My great delight to have had you back on. Hour 3 of Tavis Smiley after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA.